evening and welcome to episode 8 of Melodies of the Heart. Tonight we'll be sharing with you a song called River of Life. And this song there's two main verses that we're going to share with you that are directly in the song, and then another verse that is related to the song. And so Daniel is going to read the first of those, and it is Psalm 46. He's going to read parts of it.
Okay. Psalm 46 begins, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. And this verse 1, that God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. It's a commonly shared verse, and it's a powerful truth about God. But kind of as I was reflecting on this, and it actually really ties in even to what I'm focusing on in grad school right now, how some of these truths, we need to get these truths in, and at least at our church, we talk a lot about speaking out truths. And here it just really struck me as we're focusing on this truth about God, that He is our refuge and strength, that He is an ever-present help in trouble, that we can declare that, and the psalm goes right into, therefore, we do not fear. And we have to be rooted in that truth. We have to be solid in that truth of who God is and what He's doing, in order to not have fear. And, speaking for myself, fear is a hard struggle. And if I'm not rooted in God, but trying to overcome fear in myself, it never works. And I think that there is just such great power when we remind ourselves who God is, what He said, what He's promised, and in this case talking about He's an ever-present help in trouble. It's not just in the good times. Doesn't say anywhere that God always makes things easy. It doesn't say anywhere that God's going to take us on easy street through our lives, but He does say that He is an ever-present help in those times of trouble. And there's just a lot of power in that, and therefore we don't fear, even though all these crazy things may go wrong, even though the mountains may fall, the seas may roar and foam, the mountains may quake and tremble, yet still God promises that He's with us. And that's the kind of awesome reassurance that He gives, just that He is with us. And at Christmas time we focus on that name, Emmanuel, God with us. And yet sometimes we take it for granted so much that God really is with us, that He really wants to be with us in all that we go through, whether it's easy or hard. And it's just powerful when we stop and remember that and pause and remember who God is and that He is with us. And then it gives us the courage to overcome that fear. So, did you have any thoughts on that? I know you had some really cool insights on some of these next coming verses. So,
Yeah, I'll jump into verse 4. Are you ready for
okay.
it?
I think so.
Okay. So, verse 4, I wanted to actually read in two translations. Actually, could you read verse 4 in yours? Because that's the one I believe is directly in the song.
Okay. Just verse 4, or do you want me to do a few?
You can do just verse 4.
Okay. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells.
And that's the opening, that first part is the opening of the song. And I really liked it in the Passion Translation, so I wanted to read it in this as well. God has a constantly flowing river whose sparkling streams bring joy and delight to His people. His river flows right through the city of God Most High into His holy dwelling places. And so there's just this image of this flowing river through the city of God that brings joy. And we know that civilizations cities were built around rivers because they needed a water supply. That was the key to life was water. And so it's this image that this, the city of God is this river flowing through it that brings joy, that brings life. And when I think about that image of water, this has been an analogy or a image that I have loved even when I was younger. I remember just looking up verses about water and refreshment and all the symbolism with that, and just loving that analogy, because in our lives it is circumstances can happen that can leave us dry and parched, and he is the source that won't run out. And I love where David talks about in Psalms and says that he thirsts like a deer pants for water. Just that image of thirsting after Christ. And I think, did you want to share, or were there more verses in Psalm 46?
Yeah, a couple more things. And, reading through, and I might just read through a few more verses here. Right after verse 4, it says, God is with her, she will not fall, talking about God's holy city. And God will help her at break of day. Nations are in an uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, and the earth melts. And then verse 7, the Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And then skipping down a little bit, another very well-known verse, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And again, the Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And when we see this image of the river and the source that God is, we can be still. We can have peace, even amidst the turmoil around us. Even though, we may see the problems around us. It's not that we're in denial, and I feel like we've said that a few weeks now. But when we keep our gaze fixed on God and who He is and what He said, that He is the Lord Almighty, that He is with us, and that the God of Jacob is our fortress. He is our protector. He is our cover. Then we can be able to say and even say to ourselves, be still and know that He is God. Because sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that and remembering who He is. And so, this is just a powerful psalm to speak over ourselves. It's a powerful song. And, yeah, did you have any other thoughts there before?
Just a few other verses.
Okay.
All right.
Jumping on?
Yep. So the next one that's these are just, we're just sharing the pieces now. But the next song that's in the song, if I can speak correctly, is from Isaiah 43, 19 through 20. 19 is the one in there. Behold, I will do something new. Now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness, rivers in the deserts. The beasts of the field will glorify me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I have given waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert to give drink to my chosen people. And so just again, that image that in the desert and in the midst of the wilderness and the desert, God brings His river in a place that we think of as dry and parched, and that's what brings life. That's what sustains, the ecosystem. As I taught science class this year, and we talked about that and the food web and ecosystems and just how important it is, those pieces like having water there in order for there to be life and to be plants and to be animals. And so that image of really a river bringing life. And then I have another verse. Did you want to?
Sure, can I?
It is Isaiah 58:11.
The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail.
So I love, again, that image of in scorched places, is what my version said. What did you say the same?
In a sun-scorched land.
Sun-scorched land. Yet we will be like a well-watered garden, a spring of water. And how the only way we can do that is drawing on His water. We can try to build our own cisterns. A book I was reading talked about that, talked about how often we try to build our own cisterns to find joy in the dry places. But those cisterns have cracks, and they're not going to, usually it's dirty water at the bottom. But when you compare that to a spring of water that never fails, that's what Christ is. And so many times when we're struggling and when we're frustrated and we're like, God, I'm dry, nothing's working, what's going on? Why aren't you blessing this? It's because we're building our own cisterns and then expecting Him to bless them. And one thing that just really stood out in this book that I was reading was the author said, and I'll try to, I'll put the book in the comments for anyone interested in reading it. But the author was talking about how God isn't going to bless the cisterns that we're digging. So sometimes when we're frustrated and mad at Him because things aren't working, it's because He wants us to come to the well. He doesn't want us to stay with our cisterns, our pathetic cisterns. He wants us to come to the well and drink fully from the source. And so He's not going to bless our cisterns when He knows that there's more and there's Him and there's fullness of life. He wants us to live in fullness of life. And so I would like to share more about the song itself. Was there anything more you wanted to?
Well, just, as you're talking about that cistern analogy, a cistern needs to get filled by something, and whereas the well is its own source and continual. And, we may, just as you were talking about that, the image came to my mind, we may get a heavy rainfall, we may have a powerful experience with God, and He may, from time and time again, fill our cistern, but unless there's more coming in, that cistern's going to run out eventually, and that analogy is just kind of eye-opening to me in terms of when we may have that spiritual high, we may feel like we're filled, but then gradually it depletes and depletes until eventually we feel empty again. It's, God, what's going on? Why am I empty again? Why am I not how I was back when we had this great experience? But it's that continual, and this reminds me back to either week 1 or week 2, we talked about being continually filled with the Spirit. And I feel like God keeps bringing us back to that theme for ourselves, and I think that's why it keeps coming out every week here.
And He wants us. He wants us to get to that point when we are just relying on His well and we're not relying on other things. And that's what I want to get to. That's what our desire is. So the song I wrote a few years ago, and it was when I was feeling in the midst of a dry place. It was the beginning of grad school, right? Was it? No, maybe it was a year in.
When was it?
19. That would have been a year in grad school.
So that has been a year in when I had to take a break after struggling.
August? You were starting your internship at that point.
Okay.
Either way.
Yep.
He was doing grad school, as he still is. We were fostering, as we are still taking care of a baby. and it was for whatever reason, sure other things were going on, that it just felt dry. And at that point we had been newborn to newborn to newborn. And so we were weary, and I was weary, and I don't remember exactly when he gave me the song, but I do remember a lot of it coming while I was driving, as sometimes happens. And it's neat how I felt like this song was unfolding as he was teaching me, because it was like I was crying out, and at some moment, God revealed to me that I'm looking. I get this image of myself just looking out at this desert, this dryness, saying, God, where are you? You've said you're a river. You've promised this river of life and abundance and not this dryness that I'm feeling right now. And at some point I just heard him saying, the river's right here. Just turn around. The river's here. I'm here. You don't have to look for the desert to go away to find the river. You don't need to keep looking for your circumstances to change. Just stop and let yourself get in the river. And really that is, as we've talked about, that is the fight. The fight is getting in his presence and getting in his river. I can't change the circumstances around me. I can't make the desert go away when we feel like we're going through a desert time. This year has been an even greater desert time. Tomorrow we're remembering the 1-year passing of my sister-in-law and just how much that turned our family's world upside down, and it's felt like a dry year, and yet when I stop and let myself soak in his river, he brings that life back. And even though the circumstances aren't going to magically change, his presence makes all the difference, and that's what changes. And then when I'm in his river, I can hear his voice more clearly, and I allow him to speak truth over me, and to hear from him, his truth is not going to come as shame and guilt. So when his truth comes, sometimes it's gentle conviction, like I talked about last week. But even in the midst of that, it's always, I love you, I'm there for you, I'm not letting go, I'm right here, and it's always love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brings life.
Amen.
A sip of water. Talking about water makes me thirsty. So this is River of Life. There is a river, the streams make glad the city of the Lord, and there is a desert drier than gold that withers up the soul, and for so long I felt so dry. I am weary, my soul is parched with longing, but all I see is the desert, the sand in front of me. And there is a promise given by God. It's the promise of new life. He says, I'm doing a new thing, doing a new thing. I'm making rivers in the wasteland, but the desert is lonely, the desert is dry, and my eyes see only the swirling sand, and so I pray, Lord, send the river, wash the weariness away. And God send the river, God send the river, choice is mine now to dance in the living waters. Now I see I can stay in the desert and let the river cover me. And I choose the river. I choose the river. I choose the river. The river of life. Oh, I choose the river. I choose the river. I choose the river. The river of life. And I'm gonna plant my feet in the river. And I'm gonna let the waters wash my soul. I'm gonna plant my feet in the river. And I'm gonna let his healing waters make me whole. 'Cause I've got a choice. And I'm gonna choose the river of life. And I choose the river. I choose the river. I choose the river. The river of life. Oh, I choose the river. I choose the river. I choose the river. The river of life.
So hearing it again, I think one of the really powerful pieces in that song is the choice to dance in the river. And you kind of talked about it earlier, but God saying that the river's there. The question is, do we want to get in it or not? And sometimes it's really hard just to see the desert and not to see the river. But he promises, just as he's promised to be there, he promises that that river is there for us if we're willing to dance and splash and swim and enjoy. It's not just a muddy, stinky creek that might keep us alive, but it's abundant and full and cleansing and powerful. Anything else you had to? All right.
Pray us out.
I would be glad to. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that you are the God who brings refreshment. You're the one who gives us living water even in dry and arid places. You're the God who wells up in streams of living water. You're the one who says that we who drink of you will never thirst again, for you're the one who satisfies us. You are the one who refreshes us. And just thank you so much. I just pray for anybody who is in an arid place right now, who feels like they're in the desert and maybe can only see the dry around them, maybe can only see the emptiness, the death, the desolation, whatever it may be. Father, may they hear that quiet whisper of you there. Lord, open their eyes to see the river and the source that you are springing forth, Lord, that you have flooded forth. Lord, just as we see in the natural that beautiful life can spring up in a river, even in the middle of a desert. Oh, God, you can spring up amazing life, Lord, even when the circumstances around are ugly and messy and desert, Lord. You can spring us up as an oasis. You can spring us up as a tree planted by the waters. So we just pray Lord, for all those who are going through it right now, that they would just sense your presence, Lord, and be willing to jump in the river even if it doesn't feel like it, and open their eyes to see the water even when it's hard to see, and to allow you to refresh, Lord, even when it feels like we need to strengthen ourselves, Lord. You are the only one who can truly refresh, and we thank you. We praise you. We give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.